In a dark room, a restrained woman screams as she gives birth. After several minutes of suffering, a deformed child is born. After checking on the child, a mysterious man kills the mother. This all started 2 years ago when a family traveling through the desert accidentally found a military area known as Sector 16. The next day, half the family was dead. During the following weeks, the American army sent a team to search for the missing people in the present. Military leaders have ordered a team to install electronic monitoring in the area, but the reasons are confidential. To test the connections, technician Han has installed some dummy doors in an old mine that could be used as a secret meeting room. Dr. Wilson keeps an eye on things from the control room, which has a heat sensor. Wilson tells Han that some connections aren't working before he notices something strange on the scanner. Before he can analyze it, the screen goes off. Hans goes to check the power box and discovers that cables are fried, so he assumes the rat did it. Meanwhile, Dr. Foster is settling up his equipment on top of the hill. He tries to call Winston on the radio, but he won't answer. Then he tries to contact Han, but he's lying dead in the mine with all his intestines out. When Foster turns around, he's shocked to see a mutated man eating a snake. Foster tries to communicate, but the mutant is more amused by his back zipper. Suddenly, the man starts growling a weird word. It takes Foster a few seconds to realize what he's saying. He ran away, and by then it's too late. Someone attacks him from behind and kills him. Colonel Redden hears the screaming, so he goes looking for Foster while calling his name. Suddenly, a mutant appears behind him and stabs him with a rod before throwing him down the hill. Meanwhile, a group of soldiers is under heavy fire in a dangerous war zone. Spitters accidentally loses his helmet and goes back for it, ignoring his teammates' warning. Mine goes off near him and sends him flying. An enemy starts insulting them and their mother, so Krang comes out of the hiding to chase after him. His teammate thinks he's crazy, but they have no choice but to follow him. They throw some grenades through a door, and the explosion knocks them down. A baby doll falls next to them, and a mother appears crying for her child. Napoleon tries to apologize to her, only for the woman to reveal a bunch of grenades under her clothes. She says kaboom to represent the explosion, revealing this is just a training exercise, and they aren't in a real war. Afterwards, Sergeant Jeffrey scolds the whole team for acting like morons. He also announces they will be traveling to Sector 16 to deliver some goods for the scientists working there. It is a top secret area, so they mustn't talk to anyone or wander off when they reach Sector 16. The team remembers that the army used to test nuclear weapons there, and they worry it may be radioactive land. However, Jeffrey says their higher UPS assured him it wasn't. During the trip, the cadets keep teasing each other, and it escalates into an argument. Frank gets angry and almost throws somebody off so other teams have to call him. When they finally reach the scientist camp, they don't find a single person. They try the radio, but there's no answer. They don't notice someone's watching from behind the rock. Krang opens the door to the mine and is startled by a bunch of bats flying out. They find a satellite phone, however, it's been destroyed. Suddenly, a truck radio receives a transmission from a man asking for help. He says he's up the hill. But before he can add more details, the call ends at the moment. The team sees a signal mirror on the hill, and Jeffrey announces that they are going on a rescue mission. Napoleon thinks it's a bad idea to leave without contacting the base first, so Jeffrey punishes him by making him guard the bathroom on one leg. On their way out, Jeffrey notices Amber flirting and makes her to stay too, telling her to keep trying the radio. Amber follows orders and is surprised to hear a hello on the other hand, but nothing else as the group goes up the hill. Mickey accidentally steps on a hidden hole and falls. The others rush to rescue him and get him out, just in time, throwing a rock into the hole. It tells them it must be around 100 miles deep, or 100 years old. Mickey ankles is injured, so Jeffrey sends him back to the camp. Meanwhile, Napoleon enters the bathroom to relieve himself. Suddenly, he hears a weird sound, and a hand appears in the toilet to grab his legs. Napoleon screams and immediately comes out in panic. Amber is skeptical of his story and takes a closer look, only for a whole arm to appear in the excrement. Both cadets scream and close the door as a man climbs out of the toilet asking for help. The soldiers take him out and discover it's Wilson, who has strange cuts on his trembling body. Wilson whispers that they are here before he dies. Napoleon realizes someone's cut him, so he will die slowly from an infection. After watching up the duo, tries to contact Jeffrey, but the radio is still useless. At that moment, they see some smoke and are shocked to discover someone has set their truck on fire. Amber notices that her rifle is missing and decides to go looking for her team to warn them, but Napoleon chooses to stay. After taking just a few steps, Amber hears a noise and suddenly a zombie jumps on her from behind. She tries to defend herself, but the mutant is much stronger and throws her down. Then Amber hits him with a rock, only for the mutant to attack back with a blade. As Amber dodges the blows, a bullet hits the mutant. It comes from Mickey holding in the rocks. The mutant escapes by jumping into one of the mine holes. From a different hole, a hand reaches out and grabs Mickey's ankle, making him fall. Amber tries grabbing his hand, but the mistress hand is pulling him too hard. She grabs her gun, however, she can't shoot because Mickey's body is covering the entire hole. Soon, Napoleon arrives and tries to grab Mickey too, but it's too late. Mickey's body starts bleeding when the rock breaks his leg, bending it until the body is squeezed enough to go through the holes and disappear on the hills. Delma is choosing to climb a high rock formation to continue the search. He almost leaves off, but thankfully made it to the top. Meanwhile, Missy separates from the group to look at a message from her son on her phone. Suddenly, she hears a noise and is startled by someone touching her shoulder, but it's just her teammate announcing they are moving. After walking for a while, they find a shoe on top of the rock. Nearby, they discover Foster's body, with his wallet stuck inside his head injury. Getting worried about an enemy, Spita tries to contact the camp, but their friends won't answer. After a few tries, they hear Redin, who only says a sentence before the call ends again. Missy points out that that's not the same voice they had in the previous call. The team keeps moving, hearing strange noises among the rocks. Suddenly, a mutant tries attacking Spider, hitting his backpack instead. Spider responds by opening fire, so the mutant runs to the top of the hill and throws a rock at him, panicking. Spider continues to shoot without time. While the mutant escapes, the team tries to help him, but Jeffrey still dies when Amber and Napoleon arrive. They have to tell them about Mickey too. After wrapping Jeffrey's body in a blanket to carry him, the team starts making their way back. Delma sees someone moving on top of the rock, but ignores it to avoid troubles. When it's time to climb down, Spider goes first while carrying the body. At first it goes well, but suddenly the rope breaks and Splitter falls to his death. Crank blames Napoleon for making a bad knot. However, Delma notices that the rope was cut. They also discover that all their spare ropes are gone. The team starts looking for a path that can take them down safely, but they only find dead ends. When they hear another noise, they follow it until they find Redin, who is barely alive. They try to take care of his wounds, but Redin snaps at them and laughs. When they hear screaming in their distance and everyone gets ready to shoot, when they turn around, they find Redin standing with a gun in his hand. He explains that there are humans living in the mines who have mutated because of the radioactive activity that happened during the old experiment. These mutants kill all men but keep women for breeding. The team asks how to live, and Raiden answers by self-deleting. Minutes later, Missy sits with Amber and shows her a video of her son. A mutant appears behind them and Missy yells, now because this is a trap. The guys open fire and quickly shoot the mutant to death. Afterward, Missy moves behind a rock to relieve herself, and noticing the mutant behind her, because his rock looks like skin allows him to grab her from behind, and her screaming get to others' attention. They run down a path and see the mutant taking her into the mines. When the team enters, the mine to Stomp thinks this is a bad idea, so he leaves the cave and promises to come back with help. The group continues to search the mine. On our way, someone was watching from the shadows. They find a dead end and Missy's phone on the ground. Using their flashlights, they realize some metal sheets are covering a tunnel. So Delma slides down and kicks the rocks, blocking it to reach the lower level. Seeing is safe, the rest of the team slides down too. Amber freaks out when a spider appears on her arms, but she manages to make it through. Meanwhile, Stomp is going down the hill when he hears someone nearby. Rocks start falling around him as he continues to hear the creepy noise. After dodging them, a nervous Stomp decides to climb down without a rope. It's very dangerous, so he has to move slowly. Midway, he finds a tunnel in the wall and calls for his friends, but nobody answers. When he tries to leave, a mutant appears in the tunnel and calls to his hand to make him fall to his death. In the mine, the team follows a breeze that takes them to a hole in the wall. They look out and see their dead friends, which means this is where the mutant cut the rope. The next tunnel is filled with water, so they can't see the ground well. Amber decides to save a bullet in her pocket in case she needs to self-delete in an emergency. She accidentally steps into a pit, and when Napoleon tries to grab her, he falls to the next level too. The water drains through the pit, and Crank Demon look down to his friends and they are alright. They have no choice but to keep moving in two groups. The mutant holding Missy is down there, but he hides before they can see him. Demon and Crank find their path, blocked by another hole. Crank decides to make a big jump, but he barely manages to hold on to the other side. And he starts to sleep. Demon also jumps and actually makes it. Then he brings Crank up to the side of the hole. There's a beam that they use to go down safely in a room full of dusty objects. The mutant drops Missy and says he wants Mama Pretty. Missy spits on his face, and the furious mutant calls her a slur before throwing her on the bed. She tries to defend herself, but he strikes her down. He tastes her blood and calls it sweet before inserting his tongue into her mouth. Missy bites a piece of the tongue off and kicks the mutant in the groin. Then she tries to run away. Unfortunately, a big mutant appears at the door and knocks her down. The first creature apologizes and calls him Papa, before the new mutant hits him too, so he runs away. Next, the big mutant announces he wants a baby and tries to take advantage of Missy. Hearing the screaming, Delma and Crank calls Missy's name. While trying to find the right path, the big mutant roars and closes the door, before going back to Missy to violently abuse her. Meanwhile, Napoleon and Amber find Stomp's head hand, and his hand suddenly falls near them. A mutant is sneaking around, and Napoleon opens fire, and he doesn't land a single shot and runs out of bullets. Then the mutant tries to attack. So Amber grabs his hand to burst one of his eyes. He tries to choke her in return. However, Napoleon uses a rock to smash the mutant's head until he's dead at that moment. A blind creature appears in the tunnel, so the duo slowly moves back to try to escape. As the mutant tries to follow their smell, Amber and Napoleon fall through a hatch. To their surprise, a friendly mutant closes it and tells them they are safe. Soon, Crank and Delma reach the same tunnel, and their voices cause the blind mutant to open fire. Delma gets wounded, and Crank acts fast and fires back until he brings the blind mutant down. Although now both soldiers are out of ammo, Napoleon opens the hatch and brings his friends in. The mutant asks them to follow him, and after crossing a hidden passage, the group reaches a room full of bodies and the belongings of the victims. Body parts are hanging on tables and hooks, or inside the fridge and a meat grinder. Amber screams when she finds Mickey's body. At that moment, Delma collapses and dies in his friend's arms. The group keeps moving while dragging Delma's body. The mutant guides them to the entrance, but sadly the door is stuck. Amber wants to go back for Missy, but Krang thinks she's already dead. But he sees Dynamite behind a wooden door and starts ripping off the planks. The mutant says they shouldn't touch anything and runs away. When Amber decides to search for Missy anyway, Napoleon follows her. Eventually, Krang enters the other room and grabs a diamond box. However, when he brings it out, he accidentally pulls a wire that detonates the explosive. The explosion is big enough to bring down the debris on Napoleon and Amber, who came back to check on his friend and find him dead. At the same time, the big mutant is trying Missy on the bed, and her screams echo in the mind following the noise. Napoleon and Amber move through a new tunnel, opened by a blast, and find the army's meeting room. When Napoleon approaches the table, a mutant dressed as Dummy attacks them by surprise. After a few kicks, he jumps on Amber, so Napoleon slashes him twice with his knife, and Amber stabs him with her gun until he's dead. The duo keeps moving and throws wooden planks. They see the big mutant with Missy. Amber puts Missy's phone in another room and makes it play a video. So the mutant goes out to investigate. The soldiers rush in and untie Missy. But before they can leave, the mutant comes back, busting through the wood. He brings Napoleon down before grabbing Missy to start smashing her on the ground. Amber remembers her extra bullet and shoots the mutant in the head, and it only takes off a little bit of brain. The mutant throws Napoleon off again and captures Amber to choke her. Napoleon grabs a metal rod and stabs him to hold him, while Amber inserts her finger into the brain wound, squashing until he collapses. Afterwards, a furious Missy keeps kicking the body, and he awakens to grab her ankle, making her fall. He reaches for a knife, but Napoleon finds an axe and stops him before helping Amber free their friend. Missy gets a hammer and hits the mutant on the groin a few times, followed by Napoleon inserting his gun in the mutant's mouth, finally killing him. Now the trio can finally leave. The disappearance of the soldiers is never explained to their families, and they are officially listed as absent without leave. Sector 16 is still a secret safe, and someone is watching it on a radar. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.